Today we're going to be talking about China as the new geopolitical peacemaker. Okay, that is the new position that China have decided to portray itself. You be wondering how did it get here? I mean, how did China actually was able to now become a peacemaker as opposed to its main arch rival, America, now the conflict maker. So if China is now assuming the position that everybody actually expect America to actually be, doesn't that tell you something? You saw it in the news. China was able to pull off one of the biggest diplomatic peace accord, in our generation. China was able to get Saudi Arabia and Iran together on a table and make peace. I mean, literally, Saudi Arabia and Iran has been technically at war for decades. Why did China take this endeavor to bring peace between Saudi Arabia and Iran? It's not just an act of convenience that they did that. Okay, they did that purely because of business. Purely business. Okay, it's in the interest of China to have access to the highest producers of the natural resources, the core natural resources it needs to actually reach the height of its ambitious economic and industrial growth. Okay, China needs oil, and it needs humongous amount of oil. In fact, it just can't get enough because of the industrial clout that its country is exhibiting. I mean, that they possess. It is amazing. I mean, China have turned to a production country. I mean, it's just like a factory. Okay, all they do is work 24/7 and produce stuff that we all need over here. That is China for you right now. And America has been in charge of running things around the world for decades. Okay, since the fall of the British Empire, America has been in charge, the dominant figure that is calling the shots in almost all the geopolitical zones or regional zones in the whole world, all the continent in the world. After the Second World War from 1945, America was not affected physically during the war because its territory is far off, behind the Atlantic Ocean. So no bombs or planes flew over to do any kind of harm in America. So while the war was going on, America was busy, okay, producing, working, strategizing and supporting its allies. And for it to support you as an ally, of course, there have to be some underground dealings and agreements and arrangements that need to be made, things that will benefit America. So that is how America became very powerful after the Second World War, because it was able to reach into several deals, with the European countries that were kind of like, engulfed in this war. The whole of Europe, including United Kingdom. I mean, they had conflict in China, with Japan. There was conflict all over. Okay, and USSR was a major part of that conflict against Hitler in Germany. Okay, so you have Hitler, you have fighting the British and Russia at the same time, and conquering a whole lot of countries within the Europe. Okay, so that is how this war took so long. Now America came in as a supporter, okay, to support UK, from being annihilated, okay, and then of course at the end of the day, Russia lost a whole lot of its citizens in that war. 20 something million Russians died in that Second World War. So now when the war finished and Germany was conquered, now America took a whole lot of scientists, a whole lot of skilled, educated German creators, inventors, into America. And these people became very useful to America. So they got them to work, and that's how America was, started, having the Industrial Revolution as at that time. And America had a whole lot of money. So the European countries and UK, they were broke, serving, the tragedies of war. So America was actually conditioning the economies in Europe, giving out loans and, and created IMF, World Bank, and has its own stooges to actually be the directors and be in charge. And they would do whatever they have to do in the interest of America. Because that's how America became very powerful, and it became an industrial nation. So whatever America produces, since then, they actually just send it out to all these areas that have been victims of the war. Okay, so became financial capital, became industrial capital around the world. As at this time, America has already done what it did with Japan. Japan was still strong back then, but after Pearl Harbor attack, that Pearl Harbor attack, I still believe that, America saw it coming. The Japanese were actually lured into that attack. Okay, America wanted that attack to take place, so they were actually because they know they were stronger, and they actually had the perfect opportunity to tame Japan, make it a vassal state. Okay, and that is what they achieved easily after they dropped the nuclear bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay, that made Japan surrender. Okay, now we're going back now to the deal, the Iran Saudi Arabia deal. Why did China endeavor took this route to actually make this deal? This deal is very, very crucial for China. It's very crucial for China's success. It's very crucial for China's ambitions. Okay, China is on the go right now. UK, United Kingdom, has reigned. Europe has reigned. America has reigned, dominated the whole world for so long, still dominating. But now we have a new kid on the block, and that is China. And China is coming to stay, whether you like it or not. And this new kid on the block is not coming alone. Okay? It's not coming to make things happen, run things around the world, set new standards around the world alone. Okay? And that is one of the big edge it has over America's dominance. China is coming in now as an industrialist, as a businessman. They're bringing in business. They're coming in with benefits. They're coming in peace. They're coming in for progress. They're not coming in and giving orders and giving conditions and giving, sticks and carrots. Okay? China's coming in to discuss what you want, how they can provide you what you want, and you give them what they want. So what China's new tactics is first finding out what you want, and they will tell you they can make that happen. They can give that to you, and they just tell you what they want. And it's strictly using the principle of mutual benefit to any party that they want to negotiate with. This deal that China have just brokered between Saudi Arabia and Iran is purely business. It's for energy security. Simple. Financial and energy security. Now it's energy security for China and financial security for Saudi Arabia and Iran. Okay? So now bear in mind that China has a big load on his head right now. The BRICS formation. Okay? China is trying to bring these BRICS countries, these BRICS plus other countries that they've gotten interested in it, to be part of it, is bringing them together. And it's a very, very big task. Humongous, very ambitious task to bring these developing countries together to counter the West. The West has been running things economically, militarily, politically, socially, everything. They've been running things. And that's where you keep hearing, the rule-based order. That is the policies that they've created for you to follow. That is their rule, which is not actually written out as a template or as we know in international law. In international law is written out and it's all in the UN Charter. Okay? It's all there, international law guiding every nation's behavior. But when you hear the rule-based order, is actually things that the dominant powers assume as the set of behaviors that every nation must adhere to, solely to not keep the West upset. So you must follow those rule-based orders so you will not go against their interests. And China is trying to counter that right now. Okay? Now, there are a whole lot of things you need to know about China. How did it become so powerful right now to challenge the West? China is not just challenging America. It's challenging the whole West. And how can you challenge the West? The West, they got money. I mean, they are rich, filthy rich. And they got power. when you have money, you have power. They have power as a militarily. Their military might is, is something to reckon with. America has the largest military in the whole world. Okay? I won't say it has the strongest or the most effective military in the world today. Nah, it doesn't. But it has the largest military in the world with over 800 military bases around the world that they use to control their spheres of influence among nations. China is trying to counter that now because you can see that since Barack Obama presidency, Barack Obama got into office since 2008, okay, to 2016. And when during the last term of Barack Obama, he announced a new pivot to Asia because China was now growing up and becoming big. So China needed to be calmed down because when somebody becomes big, it's like raising your kid, you're raising your kid from childhood and now it becomes adult at the age of 18. You see, you are limited to things you can say to him. You are limited to the things, how you can push him around because he can challenge you. He's a man now, okay? So he can rather pack his stuff and leave your house and start his own life if he's no longer comfortable with your conditions, with your whatever. So that is how China is right now. China have been under the umbrella of America for so long, okay? And now they're breaking off, and they're breaking off in a very big way. China is right now very, very rich, filthy rich, okay? But not as rich as America. You need to know that as of right now. But it's filthy rich because of its production power, its industrial capacity. That has already surpassed America and Europe. Europe is just, when I mention America, that goes with Europe and all that because all European countries right now are all vassals of America. Okay, so America controls everything that's going on right now in Europe politically, financially, militarily, even socially. Now, China have these bricks that they are using now to come up strong. Now, these BRICS countries that you're seeing right now, what does BRICS mean? Let me just say that for those that don't know, BRICS represent B for Brazil, R for Russia, I for India, C for China, and S for South Africa. These are the primary countries, 5 countries that came together to start these BRICS countries as an economic development, club of countries. They're not setting up a military outfit to antagonize, dominate or threaten or whatever. China, you should know, everything China does is business. It's strictly interested in business. It's interested in anything that has to do with goods and services. That's it. Okay? Now, the military part of China is only for its own security. China have very huge military right now, but it's only to secure its territory, not to send it out to protect others, other people. No, or to get into conflicts. That's not the priority of China. Okay, because it's not trying to be the world dominator. America dominates the world. through its military power. Now, what China is trying to do is the opposite. China is trying to dominate the world through economics, through financial power, through business. And everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to profit something. Everybody wants to live comfortably. Everybody wants progress, prosperity, development. And that's what China is trying to bring to the rest of the developing countries. Okay? Now, when China started this, a lot of American, elites and European elites did not envision how fast China can achieve its goal. They were negligent in undermining, underrating China's prowess. Okay? China's prowess actually started from Africa. These people are very smart. They started from Africa. They first went to Africa because they know the Western world, they are only interested in getting from Africa, ripping up Africa, because they see Africa as not as intelligent, not as adventurous, curious, interested in immediate development. They know African leaders are very greedy, very selfish. Most of them are very uneducated. Okay? Most of them, they just love power. They just want to be in power. When you've been enslaved for too long, when you finally break free, you'll be power freak. The freedom will start to intoxicate you. African leaders see themselves as them being deprived of so many glorious lifestyle. So when they finally get the opportunity to see this rosy lifestyle, to see so much money, to see all kind of wealth, they become intoxicated in that. So they become very selfish. They make so much money, steal so much money through corruption, keep it to themselves and for their friends and their immediate family. The Western world don't do that. The Western world will come and steal from you to develop its nation and keep a little for itself. I wish the African leaders can have that vision, that mindset of all this stealing that is stealing. Yes, steal, but use it to develop your country. Okay? It doesn't matter even if you use proxy names to open companies and develop your country. But it is tragic and treasonous. To steal all that assets, wealth, take it to the same Western country that is actually only interested in keeping you that way. You take it over there, buy properties, put in your bank and all that. Okay? Just like up till now, after how many years, more than 10 years that Sani Abacha, former military dictator in Nigeria, died, Nigeria is still receiving refunds of some of the money in billions of dollars that he stole and hid in America. After long judicial processes to obtain this money, they are still coming back with so much consultation, fees flying out of it. That's what I'm talking about. Okay? Now, I don't know the last time you heard that, a Chinese leader, was caught, is being prosecuted for sending $10 billion to America or to Switzerland, you know, and being tried. I don't even recall hearing that in the past 30 years or thereabout. But though China has very strict policy to corruption right now. You know, if you're found guilty of corruption, treasonous activity in China, they hang you or shoot you. You dead. They sentence you to death. So that has gone a whole long way to discourage, to reduce corruption in Chinese politics. Okay? Now they have their own development bank where members of BRICS can go to that bank and take loan for developmental purposes. Not for selfish purposes to steal and all that. No. They will give you loan at the least interest rate. And serious undertakings will be signed to make sure that money is used for the purpose it's being taken for. And they will investigate it. Okay? To limit some sort of corruption that goes on. So, the kind of money you get from that development bank, you can compare that to what you're going to get from IMF or World Bank, where you're going to take a loan and they put clauses on it, give you conditions of how you can get that loan. For you to qualify for that loan, they give you conditions, you know, some policies that you have to change. They will make you to go and change your constitution of your country, you know, some governmental amendments that you need to make in your own country to qualify for that loan. They can even go as far as, you know, tell you who and who not to appoint in your government. They even go as far to influence your social policies in your country. Okay? To get those loans. Now that is a difficult pill to swallow. But a lot of corrupt politicians in Africa easily swallow that. They don't care. You know? They take those loans. They will not develop their country as they should. They steal a whole lot of it. So, China have now brought these BRICS and is now portraying these BRICS as the new hope. Okay? Now, African countries, for example, the developing countries, South America, some other countries in Asia, do not qualify to be part of the West, to be part of G7 or G20. Do you understand? So, they still left behind like these miscreants. You know, they still left behind like these, you know, undeveloped nations. But when they need what they need to keep maintaining their position, they go to these undeveloped nations and get their resources to keep them at the level they are while they're keeping you where you are. I mean, imagine one country in Europe, France, a French country, one single country, single-handedly controlling almost all the African countries, the Francophone countries, the French-speaking countries in Africa. One country controlling their finances, their minerals, their politics, and even their social lifestyle. One country. Okay? I mean, you guys must have heard, the EFF leader of South Africa, Julius Malema, serving the French ambassador in South Africa a notice of memorandum, literally giving them quick notice order to free these African countries, French African countries, French-speaking African countries, to free them from these neo-colonial agreements that they had with France. Countries like Benin Republic, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, Central Africa, all these countries, do you know that all their reserve, financial reserve, is in France, in Paris? And when they need part of that money, they will have to beg for it. They can get as far as maybe 15% of that. And it will be given to them as a loan with interest under strict conditions. Their own money. They will beg to get it, still pay interest on the one they're going to get from it. The rest is still there in Paris. And they are using that to run their country, to fund their country's projects, advancing their developments, while you are there in Africa, still paying interest on your own money. When any minerals or any big project that is going to be done in these African countries, these French-speaking African countries, the French companies must be first consulted and given the opportunity to bid for the contract, to show interest of running such adventure, such business, such whatever, or managing, excavating such those minerals before you can give it to any other country. It's only when the French does not show interest in any development in the French-speaking countries in Africa that they can allow you to open the bidding to other countries. Tell me what is more. That is more than having a vassal state. That's modern day colonialism in the open. Okay? These countries are mentioned. France has military bases in them. And if there's any new leader that come in and try to change along the way against that agreement that has been signed since independence of these countries, they will either kill that leader or support a revolt and remove him or her from office. That's it. And who turns a blind eye to all this? America. The whole of Europe turn a blind eye and watch Africa keep remaining stagnant, undeveloped, even encouraging the corrupt leaders to be more corrupt. You'd be wondering, why didn't these African leaders protest, object, question these conditions that their ancestors signed to get independence from the French countries? It's because they don't have any alternative. They don't have who they're going to run to. Come on, you know how it is when we're in school. You know, if you're in a class, there's always a bully. Okay? There's always a bully that you be always be scared of. You know? Now, if you are in that school or that class at the point you now have a new intake, there's a new student that probably transferred from another school that just got admitted, and this person showed to be somebody that is strong or stronger, bold, confident, selfless, protective, and intelligent. You that is being bullied might want to lean close, because you got a bully that's been bullying you that you're scared of, that you can't do nothing about. So now you see this new dude, you get close. That if he opens his arm and accepts you to be his friend or get close, you'll be more confident. If the bully comes in, now you try to defend yourself, because now you got somebody who can fight back for you. So if the bully now want to hit you, and now your newfound friend is right behind you, and he's going to tell the bully, the bully understands. You don't need to say much, just the expression. And he's going to back off and start yapping, start barking like a dog, calling you all kind of names, calling the new guy all kind of names. Can even go ahead and make all kind of falsified reports to the principal in the school. If it's a university, to the vice chancellor, if it's a rector or whatever, to get rid of that new intake that is now about to start defending some of his victims. That is what China is right now to African countries and other developing countries. And that is why they are all showing interest in joining this new, being covered in this new umbrella of BRICS. This new development outfit platform, where they will have access to developments, they will have access to financial support, they will have access to clear visionary ideas of progressing their country. China is providing that. Okay? Now, forget these ideas that you hear about this death trap, propagandas that the Western countries put out there in the media, that China is setting up death traps in Africa and all the developing countries. I mean, that's a myth. That's just unrealistic. Remember what I told you, when the bully in school sees that his victims are being protected, he's going to do whatever he has to do, say, to defame that one. Make all kind of reports. That's what the West is doing against China. There's not like death trap. Come on, I said it before in one of my posts, where I said that African leaders are not stupid. They're smart. They're intelligent. Okay, they just not have been given the opportunity to see the other side. It's just been used to one side. Okay? Again, you see that African countries have now, some have gotten the mind to start speaking up, to start acting up, because now they got a new big brother. That if America coughs, they don't have to shiver no more. Before, if America coughs, everybody shiver around the world. Okay? If America cough right now, African leaders no longer shivers. The whole developing countries no longer shiver. Even in South America, they no longer shiver. I mean, just look at Mexico leader AMLO, the new Mexico president. Mexico, that's how they pronounce it in Spanish, but in English it's in Mexico. Okay? President AMLO, see how he's being defensive against America, condemning American atrocities, policies against Mexico that he sees as being tragic and unfortunate and horrible. Okay? What's giving him that might? What's giving him that courage to actually talk back to America, knowing fully well America can just flip, can just clench your fist like this and get you off office? But no, it's no longer as it used to be. Because it's got China now. It's got Russia. So China have brought these BRICS as an umbrella and is bringing these developing nations to come under, because they will be protected financially, militarily, and socially. Okay? When you come to the military part, you see that China is another bloc to be reckoned with. I'm not even talking about Russia. Russia is just on its own. As you guys know, Russia has the most sophisticated weapons in the world. I mean, I'm talking about military weapons. Russia has the most sophisticated, the most advanced, putting America and the West like 10 years behind. And they did this within a short period of time from 2014. That's why they actually got into this endeavor after the Ukraine Maidan coup took place with the support of America and the remaining Western countries. So Russia found the need to actually know that these people are coming for me. I have to do something to protect myself. And that's what they did. They got together, put heads together, got all the best scientists, physicists, mathematicians, biologists, chemists, everything, all their best, and came up with advanced military technologies that is now protecting Russia against any form of military threat or attack. Okay? While Russia was doing that within that sphere of time, a short time period, China was doing the same economically and militarily. And you see, people don't know a whole lot about this. A few people do know, the intelligent ones do know that China and Russia has been working together for a very long time, sharing ideas. Now, since 2007 Budapest conference, Bush announced that Ukraine and Georgia must join NATO. Putin took the podium and gave a very long speech and was furious, objected to that. Okay, the West did not still agree. Okay, and they went ahead to start laying on the foundation, the hard work, by giving Ukraine a whole lot of military hardware and training and all that, start training their soldiers and all that. So Since then, Russia knew that these people are coming for me, and they started preparing. So at the same time, China was already becoming, prowling its economic might, with its industries producing, trying to make China the production hub of the whole world. Okay? At the same time that they're doing that, they're making so much money. But Russia is not so good economically like that. So Russia focused on the military part, security. Now, what I was trying to say is that as China was advancing economically and militarily, Russia was sharing military technologies to China. China just didn't wake up overnight and start building hypersonic missiles, all these nuclear warheads, all these missiles that is like, crazy fast and dangerous. All these defense technologies that they have. They get some of these technologies from Russia. Okay? And Russia willingly give them because they already have an understanding. Yeah, Russia already know these people are coming from me, the West is coming for me. And when the West come from, who's going to be there for? It's China. So China need to be as well militarily strong, not just economically. Okay? Because you should understand the time that Russia announced its hypersonic missiles capability. A few years later, it was about 2 years later, or 3 years later, thereabout, China announced its own. Any big weapons that Russia announces, just check it out. 2-3 years later, you see China has it. So they are working in tandem. They're working together for a while because they have common enemy. Now, bear in mind, China have always been on the side with America for so long until, like I said, Obama started breaking that because they started seeing China as being economically stronger. Now, how did China become economically stronger today? I would say #1 economy in the world as per production is concerned and as per capital is concerned. But officially, America is still rated as #1 economy in the world. But I'll say it's China. Now, how did China get here? It was simply because of the greed of the Western companies, Western countries, corporate leaders. They were very greedy. They needed so much money. They needed so much wealth. They needed so much influence. They already had it. They needed more. And that is how China became what it is today. How? Very simple. Now, back since America industrial revolution became #1 in the world, became manufacturing hub in the world. Now, at the same time, Japan became also #1 economy at the point in the world because of its manufacturing capacity. Things that Japan used to produce was top-notch quality. Now, again, after America became #1, since from 1940, after 1945 Second World War, the workers in America, they have a union. Now, when these unions start asking for more benefits, more allowances, more pay, and all that, these CEOs of the corporate companies in America and in the West, they don't like that. Upon all the humongous salary and allowances that the CEOs of American companies have, they still greedy enough to not agree to increase just by little percentages the wages and allowances of their workers. So, with the union fighting them, they don't want to be shut down. So, what do they want? They want to secure their production and at the same time maximize their profit and allowances. So, how did they do that? They schemed up to start moving some factories, some of their production outfits, to areas where there is cheap labor. And which country has the highest population in the world with the largest workforce, tireless workforce, and the cheapest workforce around the world? It was China then. So they went to China. China opened this door and encouraged them to bring their companies, their factories to China for assembly, purposes. They bring the products, they assemble them in China, they have the workers, and China opened the door, give them land, give them tax reliefs, and they come there and open these factories. For example, like an iPhone product, they go there, assemble it, and they're still going to sell it as if it's an American product. You're not going to see it made in China. As at that time that it started, iPhone is an American product, but you may see assembled in China. So when it's assembled in China, it's still taken back to America as an American product. So it's not like it's going to pay import duty, import tax, or whatever. They already have other arrangement with the government. It's an American product. But the profit that they were making, just going to give you an example, jump from like 100 billion a year to like 1 trillion a year. Now that's 10 times the profit. That's huge. Okay? They didn't believe it. They got all excited and every one of them started jumping in. Okay? Now, it got to a point because those workers in America, if you're paying an American assembly plant worker like $15 an hour, minimum wage then was $7.50. Now you're paying an assembly plant worker, for example, like General Motors assembly plant, or say Chevy trucks assembly plant, you're paying them $15 an hour. In China, you're gonna pay a worker 50 cents an hour. 50 cents. Maybe the managers like $5. $5 with the managers that are highly educated managers. $5 an hour. In America, a manager there in a plant, you're not gonna pay him or her like $15 an hour. Looking at $30, $35 an hour, or like $25 an hour. So you do the imagine difference. It's huge difference. China was still very happy. Chinese citizens were still very happy to receive that 50 cents an hour. Because they didn't have it better. They have this massive population, but the work was not there. And most of these Chinese citizens were in rural areas, in the villages, farming, doing karate, kung fu and all that. Okay? A lot of them becoming monks. So American industry, European industry started going to China, open factories, and these factories were producing products. But guess what? Within a short time, you see Chinese workers started learning this stuff. The Chinese already know this. They already planned all this. They already have this set up. They already groomed their people to learn these things. So the Chinese workers started learning these things, learning how these things are being made, to a point where Chinese government actually even made some of these Western countries to start manufacturing those products, those items, those parts in China, still with cheap labor. The resources that they needed to even make those products, cobalt, silver, gold, copper, platinums, whatever it is, China was busy going to Africa to bring them at even a cheaper rate and supplying them to these corporate bodies in China. And that's how these companies start producing these things and making so much profit, growing, Chinese people started learning this stuff. And what does China do? While these things was going on, China brought out a chunk of their own budget, chunk of their own money from their education budget, and start sending Chinese citizens to the Western world. Go and learn these things, boys and girls. Go and learn it from where these people learn these things. Learn. Go, spend our money, learn. But you must come back. Because if you don't come back, your family will be gone. You're not going to go there with your wife or with your father, with your mother, with your auntie, with your cousins and nephews. You're not going to go there with them. Nah, you're going alone. And when you finish, you come back. If you don't come back, your family can vanish overnight. So you must go back. So they sent these people, millions of them, all around the world, millions. UK, Canada, America, Europe, Germany, all over to learn everything. And they did. Because they're smart. They send them the hardest heads, the most intelligent ones, they send them abroad. And they came and they learned these things, got serious skills, education, and they started coming back. Okay? And then China immersed them into these companies, these Western corporate companies that has been operating in China. These things happen in a very short time, man. Now, they learn those education, they come back They can become managers, supervisors, this, that, this, that. They learn these things fast. And then they will break out, start their own. This one will break out, start its own. This one will break out, start its own. When you want to start, Chinese government is right there to give you the startup capital, loan that you need to start what you want to start. Just present a very good business plan. So they supported them. They supported all of them. All the scientists, the engineers supported them. And that's how China started growing their manufacturing base, their industrial base, and brought it to this top notch. That today, China is the #1 best railway builder. They have the fastest railway in the world, leaving behind America that first had rails that had the fastest at the time. China was trying to, start all this, and Europe, leaving them behind, like more than 10 years behind. Because as it is right now, Chinese companies are bidding to build railways in America. They're already building railways in Europe. Europeans used to be the masters in this stuff. So China have beaten them to their game. These things that Chinese learn from them, China has so perfected it, they are now teaching them, building for them, building bridges here in Europe and in America. China builds bridges in China like you're making breakfast. Piece of cake to them. That's how advanced and successful they are. Because of this achievement that China has made industrially, politically, economically, militarily, they now have the power and the confidence to go around these developing nations to bring them under, letting them know the way we developed our country, the way we got to this success, this stage, we will open our doors for you to learn. We will teach you. We are not coming to just take your resources, exploit you. We are going to teach you. And that is the message that is ringing bell in Africa, in the developing world. And the smart leaders in the developing world right now are listening and grabbing it. And since South Africa is part of that BRICS, South Africa understands Africa, they're Africans. So they're using South Africa to be their messenger, to galvanize other African leaders and countries that are interested to be part of it. Zimbabwe, that is seriously sanctioned by the Western countries, is one of the first African countries that have recently that have just agreed to be part of BRICS. They have applied now. Algeria has applied. Okay? Egypt have shown interest, has applied. Okay? Now, a whole lot of them are going to line up because there's no precondition as in you must have this kind of government, you must do this or do that or do that. If you qualify, if you can amend some, be open to business, you are welcome. Okay? They're not like restricting everybody. They want to do business with everybody. And that is why, just watch the trend. That is why now you see somebody like Julius Malema now sending a serious warning to France to free the Francophone countries in Africa, the French-speaking countries in Africa, because those countries are in a trap, deep trap, things they've signed during their independence agreement with France. For them to break off from that is going to be very tedious for them. So something drastic must be done. Other African countries must come as to protect them, to guide them on how to break off from this French bondage. They cannot just come up and say they want to join BRICS. Have you seen any Francophone countries saying they want to join BRICS? It's only the one that have now have the mind to break off, like Mali, Burkina Faso, that have broken off now from France. But breaking up means you're going to lose your FDR, your foreign reserve in France, in Paris. You're going to lose that because they're not going to give it to you. Mali and Burkina Faso, these people have asked France to leave. Mali have, chased out French troops from there. And why could they do that? They need security. Now, I told you guys before, China does not want to start going around getting people under its umbrella, the umbrella of BRICS, through military. Now, it does not want to be portrayed as being using its military might in an aggressive way of conjuring people to join its own club. So who would do that for China? Russia. Russia is now coming in like a security umbrella for developing countries, Africa, that wants to split from the Western clutches. That's why you have Mali and Burkina Faso have the mind to challenge France. And that's why you have Russian troops, Russian mercenary group, Wagner, in Mali and in Burkina Faso, providing military guidance, security, and equipment to cover what they used to get from the French countries. Now, if other French countries can have the mind, can have the ability to want to break out from the clutches of France, Russia will be there to provide them what they need militarily. And China will be there to provide what they need economically, financially. That is what will happen next. It will get there. With the success of BRICS, bringing these countries, these developing countries more together, the world will be much more balanced. Because now you will have more population, more economic power as opposed to the West. Now, the West, it will become narrower and weaker. Okay? Now, by the time you have major part of the South American countries joining BRICS in the next 10 years, and you have like major part of African countries joining BRICS in the next 10 years, and also major part of Asian countries becoming part of BRICS in the next 10 years. At the same time, the Middle Eastern countries becoming part of BRICS, major part of them becoming part of BRICS within the next 10 years. That will cover almost 70% of the world population. And the world economic power. And that will not corner America and its Western allies. Let's go back to the peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. why did Saudi Arabia agree and why did Iran agree to this deal in defiance to the interest of America, who is the dominant Toknadu, of the world. You must know that America has always been the largest, the biggest customer of Saudi Arabia in the oil market. After that, you have Japan and, of course, China. That's how it has always been. But since after the emergence of Donald Trump in 2016, Trump being a very proactive, active businessman, with high acumen in business as he is, he immediately activated, approved the exploration of the oil resources in America. So during his tenure, America became much more self-sufficient in oil products. Okay, he allowed the fracking of their oil ores and also producing more gas as well in America, to a point that America became a major oil and gas exporter. Okay, so they reduced the quantity of oil that they were getting from Saudi Arabia. Okay, so since Saudi Arabia lost that big orders they used to get from America, China came in to fill that gap, because America is also supplying Japan. So China came in to fill that gap, and China is now the biggest oil buyer of Saudi Arabia oil. At the same time, it's still the biggest oil buyer of Iran. Because remember, Iran is under serious sanctions from America and from the rest of the Western world because of the JCPOA, the nuclear deal that was signed between the West and Russia, and of course Donald Trump pulled out of it and reinstated the sanctions that Obama has already lifted when he was leaving office, because Iran agreed to sign that nuclear deal, that they're not going to pursue nuclear weapon. Now, when China now proposed this deal with Saudi Arabia and Iran, you see where the economic interest comes in. I told you it's purely business, economic security, financial security. Now, Saudi Arabia knows that China is the biggest buyer of its resources. Iran, likewise. So, in order for them to actually stand out and be able to accommodate being in the same umbrella of BRICS, they must make peace, because business must flow. Money must flow. Okay? So that's why Saudi Arabia agreed. It's all business. They agreed on the diplomatic terms that they actually going to set aside their differences and do business. Okay? Their religious differences is still there. That will take some time for them to actually get through it. But business first. So they agreed to actually sign this deal. Because right now, through the umbrella of BRICS, China was able to convince Saudi Arabia, look, I'm your largest customer. And you must, as I am accommodating buying all your oil, a large chunk of it, you must also accommodate small thing that I would like, that will benefit both of us. To do businesses that will mutually benefit both of us. So let's trade in our own currencies. Instead of me buying your oil in dollars and still enriching America that is already killing me with sanctions. So Saudi Arabia is no longer afraid because China is there for support economically. China is the biggest customer. Russia is there if they need weapons. In case America sanctions Saudi Arabia, say we're not going to give you weapons anymore, we provide you all your military gadgets and all that. I mean, I don't know what military gadget I was talking about. I mean, Saudi Arabia has all the military equipment that America exports. It has all of them. The Patriot missiles, all kind of missiles, and all kind of every weapons that America exports. Saudi Arabia has them. And that's what it's been using to decimate Yemen. Attacking Yemen and killing a whole lot of people, dying there and all that. Upon all that weapons, it did not prevent kamikaze drones and missiles from Yemen landing in Saudi Arabia soils, almost decimating the Aramco oil facilities in Saudi Arabia. And the allegation that Saudi Arabia actually put out there is that it's Iran that's, that's supplying the Houthis of Yemen these equipments to attack Saudi Arabia. Of course, we all know that's the truth because the Houthis, the Yemen, they are mostly Shiites. So that's why Saudi Arabia is fighting. Saudi Arabia is Sunni, but they are fighting a Shiite country. So another Shiite country will actually come to protect them. And Iran is has the most sophisticated military equipment in the Middle East. It's a military power, it's the strongest in the Middle East. While Saudi Arabia is the strongest economically, financially, because they sell a whole lot of oil, to the Western world. And they are good in business. Saudi Arabians are business geniuses. They are good in investments. They have a whole lot of investments in the Western world, in the UK, in America, in Canada. They have so many. I mean, in America alone, they have American treasuries of over $120 billion. We're not talking about their investments in the real estate in America. We're not talking about their investments in American oil companies like Chevron and all that. Okay? They have invested seriously in American corporate companies as well. So much money, so much wealth of Saudi Arabia is there, generating interest for them. Apart from the oil that they are still selling to America. All these opportunities, Iran has been deprived of it because of the sanctions against Iran. Iran does not have the luxury of supplying oil and all their other mineral resources they have, like gas and all that, to the Western world, to America, to make more profit. They are limited with their customers. And China is their only major customers. I mean, you have the India as well, but China is the largest customer. You see what I'm saying? So now that America has reduced the purchases it's getting from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia need to replace America, and it's not going to get that in Europe. China is there. So China, being now the new influencer in the oil business of Saudi Arabia, they are obliged to, kind of like, you know how it is. You tap me, I tap you. Okay? You grease me, I grease you. So they're doing that. They have to actually agree to using each other's currency, instead of using the US dollars. So you see where I'm talking about now. Like I made mention before that Iran has the highest military power in the Middle East. It is very, very independent because it has done what Russia, have been doing since 2008. Being under serious sanctions since 1979, Iran knew that at any point in time, they're going to come for them. They're going to come. The Western countries are going to come one way or the other, through revolution, through internal conflict, through supporting opposition to destabilize the government and take over and all that, and put in a puppet, or like, instigate some kind of war, just like, they did, through Iraq, having Saddam Hussein to attack, to attack Iran, and the war was ferocious. It was deadly. America supplied Iraq all kinds of dangerous weapons, even chemical weapons, to lay harm on Iranians. It was really tragic. Okay, after all that, still, what did they do to Iraq? Saddam Hussein, where is he right now? Y'all know about that. It was the Western countries. So you see, the double-edged sword. But China is giving these countries, alternative to this pressure from the Western countries. And that's why they are all jumping into this umbrella of the BRICS. Okay? Now, next we're going to talk about the military might of China. Because a lot of people are not so aware the strength of Chinese military as compared to like how everybody just see America as, the strongest military in the world. Everybody should be afraid of them. The damage they can do to any country. In international stage, any country that has strong military, I can tell you that America is like a purple tiger when it comes to attacking any country that can fight back. They would not dare. They don't do that. It's not in their DNA or blood to attack whoever that can defend itself, whoever that can attack back. They don't do that. They would rather create a trap for you to fall in, and they will gather their friends, their allies, and come at you and get you decimated. America, have been so confident with their dominatory status around the world ever since that they have relented in building more advanced equipments, military, bunch of them, because they're so confident they have like over 800 military bases around the world. So everybody must be afraid, and it's more than enough to tame any country that try to challenge them. But things have changed right now. Things are changing. That it's no longer about military bases. It's not, defense is no longer about having more military bases, more military equipments. It's no longer about that. Right now, it's all about having smarter military equipment, military gadgets that are like operated with AIs and high-tech technologies, that you don't have to be where you need to be to fight. You can just remote everything from the sky, from from satellites, from your zone, and remote everything. That is the new world as it is right now. And that is where America, I feel, has relented and allowed China and Russia to fill that vacuum. So all the military bases that America has, 800 and something of them, cannot do any damage as it is right now to China or to Russia. Why? Because Russia and China has smart military gadgets, pieces of beauties that can do serious damage to any country that dare to attack them. And not just them, Iran is in that position as well. Okay? That's why Iran started building its military, spent so much, all its oil revenues, mineral revenues, spent it on building its military to stand off Israel, which is an angle of America, okay? To stand off the domineering influence of America, just as Russia did, by spending all its money, revenues from oil and gas on his military, advancing his military back to the top-notch position right now. That's why Russia can afford to attack Ukraine, and America and NATO is afraid to openly get involved. If it was otherwise, oh nah, I mean, they would have been flogging Russia right now. But they can't do that, because what are they going to do? Send troops over there? Send planes over there? They can't do that. What about your home country? Russia can be in its own home country without sending one single soldier to America. It can do a whole lot of damage in America, sitting in the office right there. Okay? China can do the same. Iran can do the same. Okay? They don't need to send soldiers. No. We are in a smart technology right now. They're not going to wait for you to map out the battlefield and they bring their soldiers so that NATO start fighting, as what's going on right now in Ukraine. Now, they're not going to wait for that. As soon as they know that, because America has larger military equipment, larger military, network, okay? So if anything erupts, they're just going to finish it real quick. They use what they got. You understand? Russia has the highest nuclear weapons in the whole world. 6,000 plus, with 1,500 active. Okay? Like active, waiting for, press the button. You know what I'm saying? And China is at 300 plus right now, active. And about 1,000 thereabout. Okay? Still on standby. And So when I say that America cannot attack who can bite back, cannot bite who can bite back, that's what I'm talking about. But they can bite who they know cannot bite back, because you be scared. Who are you gonna run to? You can't run to the EU. You can't run to the UK. You can't run to Japan. You can't run to Australia. If America want to deal with you, look at what they did to Libya. Look at what they did to Syria. Look at what they did to Iraq. Look at what they did to Afghanistan. They didn't have who to run to, because as at that time, these two countries I've been talking about right now have been very weak. Russia was not financially and militarily ready to stand up to the West. So he was waiting and in coordinating with China, growing together. As he was building his military, he was still giving out some of these technologies to China, and China was building its own. So they grew together, and now they just come up together and start challenging the West, America, because they know that America cannot do anything about it other than, back, make all kind of threats. The only thing America can do right now is just making threats, condemning, calling all kind of names at Russia and China, and creating panic and fear, to its citizens so that they can increase budget. Increase their budget is all business. Increase their budget so that the politician gets kickbacks. All the military industrial complex, MIC, keep making more money. It's all money. It's all business. All these shenanigans, all this yapping, calling up names and threats about Taiwan on this and this. America cannot save Taiwan. America is not going to fight China over Taiwan. It cannot. It does not have the capability. Financially and militarily, it does not have it. Not even the means. What you're going to do if China attacks Taiwan? You're going to go back and fight China through the sea that they own? Or you forgot the quantity of warships that you have and that of China's? Or you forgot the number of shipyards that you have compared to China? I'll give you a little hint. Pre-2000, China had 27 active and functioning warships. 27. And then America had about 200. And as of date, America has about 220 warships. Active and functioning warships around the world. Do you know how many warships right now that China has? China has 350 warships. Active and functioning warships. I'm talking about sophisticated warships. Now, bear in mind, American warships cost America about $6 billion per one. China makes those a fraction of it. Okay? Now, how many shipyards do you think America has? Pre-2000, it was maybe about 20-something. But right now, America has about 7 functioning active shipyards that build their ships, that are contracted to build their ships, military equipment ships. You want to know how many China has right now? China has 200 shipyards. 200. right now. Imagine what it will be by the year 2030 or 2050. It will be more. Okay? Now, another thing I want to tell you is that by the year 2030, it is estimated that America will have about 230 or 240 ships, warships. But China will have 440 warships by 2030. Talking about 7 years from now. These people know nothing other than production. They got the population, they got the worker bees. They manufacture things that will take you 5 years to do. They will do it in 6 months. You should be scared of people like this. That's why you should rather cooperate with them rather than confront. Nobody wants conflict. Conflict doesn't really pay. It's so temporary. And a whole lot of people are going to die from that. But don't get it wrong. Really, this is something a whole lot of people try to undermine or get it wrong. I can tell you straight out that China, under no circumstance right now, the way I say it, China does not have any intention of attacking Taiwan, of invading Taiwan, of doing any military damage to Taiwan. It does not have that ambition. It's not in their plan at all. Get that straight to you. Understand that right now. Okay? All this is just theater of, PR. All these military displays and all this, these are all theater. They're all acting as if they're about to invade, and you see America, propagating it, gingering it, hoping that it happens. Okay, trying to encourage it, just the way they created and encouraged Putin to attack, attack Ukraine. Okay, now China is not going to do that. China is way smarter. It's way too smart to do that. Why? Because they're not feeling threatened at all. It's not like Russia's situation where Russia is being surrounded. The whole the Scandinavian countries are all against it. The Baltic states in Europe are all against it. So it's just alone with all this land, huge land mass. Is almost half of it is surrounded by enemies. And the only buffer zone it has is Ukraine and Georgia. You get that? That's why America is persistent to go closer and take those areas into its own armpit. Okay? And then they can just overnight, just surround Russia overnight. They can just overwhelm them, paralyze their military. And Russia, Putin being as smart, as intelligent as he is, already know that, seen that, long time ago. And that's why I have to do this. And that's one of the reasons that Chinese leader Xi Jinping understand that. He knows that. And that's why he's even, tolerating that. Like, not fully supporting Putin in the war, but coming as a peacemaker as well. Okay? Because there are a whole lot of things that are not in the open that people don't know. But you must understand that as the war is going on, you see what's going on. You see that Russia on a daily basis, burns about 60,000, 20,000, 40,000, ammunitions, in missiles in this war. That's a lot on a daily basis. Okay? Now, these ammunitions, come on, How much workforce does Russia have? Even I know they're working 24/7, day and night, producing and all that. But you just reason it. What's the population of Russia? You know how much workforce they have pre to prior to the war. So some of these weapons is coming from somewhere. Okay, I can straight out tell you that most of these ammunitions are already coming from China. You know, in the most discreet way. You know, I mean, there was a report of a big shipyard loaded with these ammunitions, missiles from China, capsided in the sea of, of Siberia. Okay, that is, I'm sure American intelligence already got all that, but that, report is kind of like, has some kind of legitimacy. You're not going to hear that up in the open in the media because they will not be able to really have a means to verify that. But yeah, some of these weapons, these ammunitions and small missiles, those ones are actually coming from China, and they're still getting from Iran, and they're still getting from North Korea. These are covered operations to get this, and that's how they are able to keep up. The same way, but in the Western world, America is supplying Ukraine all in the open. Okay, so that people talk about that, but the ones that are not in the open, supplied discreetly, you're not going to know so much about that. That's what's going on. Okay, so that's why Russia is not, have not gone out of ammunitions. Why the West is running a whole lot of propaganda, creating fear and panic to the Russian people, to other people, that Russia will be out of weapons, this, and that's why it's not happening. So again, China will never attack Taiwan. That's his baby. Taiwan is Chinese baby. It's not gonna damage, kill his baby. Nah, it's not gonna do that. The same way they quietly, diplomatically, smartly tamed Hong Kong is the same way China is going to use to tame Taiwan. These people are very patient, and they plan decades ahead. They don't plan like on a yearly basis. Decades ahead. So they already know all this, what's going to happen. Taiwan will get tired. There's going to be change of government. Even if the current ruling party, retains office in the next election, they're still going to be patient, and they're going to wait for the next election. That's a subsequent one. Until they get someone in power that it will be pro-China, that they will actually support to get into that office. That's how the game is going to play out. China is not going to invade Taiwan. It's not going to go and damage, destroy its own property. Come on. If it's going to invade Taiwan, the damage will be so much. And they're going to lose so much economically, financially, a whole lot. People, their citizens will die. They're going to lose a whole lot from the cheap factory, cheap supply, and then they're still going to have the animosity and the the world condemnation, especially from the Western countries. Okay, even some African countries will not be happy with that. So they're not going to go and damage all they've been working for these past few decades, building alliances, building all these allies, all these economic routes, the BRI, Belt and Road initiatives they started, all the stans countries, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Afghanistan. He may lose some of those countries if he tries to invade Taiwan. Okay, so it's not going to do that. So that is not explained. So now let's forge ahead. Let's assume that China is going to, now want to flog its own Taiwan. And now you keep hearing America will do that, come and defend. They cannot. How? I said it before. How? Why? Because they have military bases in Japan and in South Korea and in the island of Guam. And they're not going to do what? Go through the same, Sea of Japan, come to South China Sea, and come and fight China in its own domain, in its own territory. You see what they're going through right now with Russia. Russia is fighting Ukraine in its own territory. Russia owns that area. The whole Black Sea and all that. That's his stuff. So all his defense system covers those areas. Covers like more than 1,000%. So anything that is seen as aggressive coming from the West or NATO, cross any of that, get close, will go down. And if the ship comes to the shove, it will send something back to where that thing came from. So these countries, they are thinking twice before really stepping on tiger's toes. Okay? It is very, very dangerous. And they know. That's why they just, at the moment, just yappy, talking, creating panic and fear and all that, and increase their budget and supply and all that, make their money and all that. Now you hear NATO and America saying they're going to buff up the NATO countries' boundaries with Russia. They're going to mobilize about 300,000 troops around Russia, so that if Russia go extreme on Ukraine, they will march into the war. They forget that even if they do that, Russia is not going to fight them right there. It's going to start sending gifts to their hometown. So who's going to defend their hometown, their home country? Okay? It's not going to waste his 1.5 million soldiers to start fighting all NATO forces on the border. No, it's not going to do that. And so NATO is not going to even try to, commit suicide. Because if they do that, that's a third party entering the war directly. And of course, China will be obliged to come in. You get what I'm saying? So it's not going to happen. So let's forget that. All right, so let's talk about the one of the major reasons that I mentioned before. One of the reasons that China is trying to broker this deal with try to broker this deal with Saudi Arabia and Iran. Now, I told you it's all about energy security. So right now, most of all the oil that goes to China comes through the Indian Ocean. Okay, in fact, about 90% of all the world oil ships come through Indian Ocean and then go through the Strait of Malacca, and that Strait of Malacca is in between Indonesia and Malaysia. Okay, now Indonesia and Malaysia, these are friendly countries to China. So China had no issue with that. It goes through, you have Philippines there. Philippines is still friendly to China and also friendly to the West, North America. And so China is not worried about that. Now, this Indian Ocean, who has the strongest military in that area that can place a blockade on that Strait of Malacca in case there is international conflict? It is India. India have the might to place a blockade on that route and stop oil shipments going to China through Strait of Malacca. And that is a threat to China. That's a threat to China's energy security in case there's conflict. Okay? So it's one of the major reasons why China is seriously and patiently avoiding any kind of escalation in the disputes, border disputes that they have with India, because they know India's leverage. Okay? So, and if there is any way that China misbehaves and attack Taiwan, the West will exert so much influence on India, and India might go the opposite way and decide to block that place. So in that case, China will be strapped, will be isolated, will be in bondage, lacking a whole lot of energy that it needs to even, fund a war. Okay? So what China have smartly planned out is to have this peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, because it wants to build a pipeline. It wants to build a pipeline from Saudi Arabia to China. Now that's a long distance pipeline it's going to build. Okay? Now, how is it going to do that? The pipeline is going to be built from Saudi Arabia to Iran. Okay? Because there's already pipeline that from Iran to China. So Saudi Arabia is going to, and China is going to build this pipeline to transport both oil and gas. The pipeline can transport both oil and gas interchangeably to Iran. And they will connect from Iran to Turkmenistan. From Turkmenistan, it will now connect to Uzbekistan. And then from Uzbekistan, it will now go to Kyrgyzstan. Okay? And then from Kyrgyzstan, it enters China. Now, this is a much more cheaper route to move this oil, because it will now avert the humongous expenses the Chinese companies are incurring in shipping this oil through tankers, through the Indian Ocean, Strait of Malacca and all that to China. They have to pay for insurance, they have to pay for all kind of levies, all kind of, crossing fees. They have to pay for a whole lot of duties. They still have to pay for the shipment. Okay? But if they now have this pipeline, they're not going to go through any of those expenses. They're just going to flow it from Saudi Arabia, and it goes down. Now, it's going to be this pipeline from Saudi Arabia to Iran is going to be funded by Saudi Arabia and China together. Though China is going to bear more chunk of the expenses. But the convenience it provides China and the energy security it provides China is immeasurable. Okay? So that's one of the main reasons they had to bring that business benefits to Iran and Saudi Arabia suck up to that, because that's so convenient. Okay? That's so convenient. Saudi Arabia ships its oil to America. It goes through ships, tankers. But right now, we're talking about pipeline. Now, this will be secure because this pipeline is going through countries' territories. These are all friendly countries to Saudi Arabia and to China. So it's not going to be like, what you have with Russia and Germany, the Nord Stream pipeline that was blown up by America and Norway. I mean, I can literally tell you with the knowledge of German government. No matter how they deny that, I am very sure they were giving some kind of heads up. Okay? So, the pipeline is there, but guess what? The two owners of the pipeline, they became rivals, became enemies. Okay? Germany became antagonistic against Russia through the influence of America. So, why can't the pipeline be blown up? It got blown up. And one of the person who owns it did not cry out. He's not complaining. He's not doing any investigation. It's just mum. So that tells you a whole lot. So China have learned a lot. And they're trying to avoid all this stuff. Okay? So they're going to build that pipeline and it carries the oil to China. So in case, you see how China is preparing itself. In case it finds itself tomorrow being heavily sanctioned by the West, America and its allies, and then they're going to try to stop ships from carrying oil and gas to China through the waterways, it has a pipeline. Okay? So that is energy security right there. Benefits all parties involved. That's why I like China's, modus of operandi, give and take. You know what I'm saying? From where I'm from, Nigeria, they say chop by chop. Mutual benefit. Okay? So that's with that. Now, we're also going to talk about China's drive into Africa. Now, China, like I said, China got into Africa at the very early stage, like long time ago. They started doing that like 20 years ago. Getting to Africa, looking for resources, mineral resources, and, giving them carrots to get what they want, all peacefully, diplomatically, like a partner. Okay? It's coming in as a friend who wants to, look, this is what I have. I want to open the door for you to learn, to develop, to profit, and all that. So China is bringing this friendship, this trade, this solidarity of, mutual interest, basically bringing mutual benefits in the areas of infrastructure, education, friendships, science and technology, all forms of endeavors that will bring the African continent into the limelight of modern development. That is the opportunity that China is bringing to Africa.